When you hear the rhythm, start to move.
Hi everyone, my name is Varia and this is Shameless Careers, a podcast about career change. Please do subscribe to this channel. I'm doing it as a side hustle and you will massively help me with this entrepreneurial endeavor. Today, I'm super excited to interview my guest, Alexandra Kirienko. Alexandra has made an amazing pivot. She used to work in finance in an investment bank, Jefferies, as an equity sales, and made a pivot towards doing what she loves, which is being a behavioral scientist, career consultant, and a PhD candidate at London School of Economics, focusing on hybrid work and well-being at work. So, Alexandra, thanks so much for being here with me, and I hope you are ready to be bombarded with questions around how you've made this choice to leave investment banking and what advice you would give to people who are thinking about career change.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay, let's go. So let's start from the very beginning. Obviously, you chose investment banking, and this is something that back then you wanted to do. Can you tell me a bit more? How did you decide to go into investment banking in the first place?
I think when people look at my CV or my LinkedIn and they see the transition from London School of Economics, studying economics and philosophy, and then starting at an investment bank, it is immediately assumed that you wanted to be in the investment bank. This is actually not the case for me. I was not planning on it, so I have a bit of an unconventional route that I took to end up at what is actually quite a conventional place for graduates of my university. When I was studying my bachelor's, I felt that I haven't fully grasped everything that I wanted to, so I really actually wanted to extend it and do a master's straight away. So this is what I did at the start of my third year of university, which is the final year of bachelor's. I applied to do a master's in management at LSE very early on because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I actually got the place before Christmas, so it was a very gentle third year. I knew I'm staying. I knew that I'm studying another discipline that I'm very interested in. But the other thing that I was doing during this time, and I think I started doing it at the end of my first year of bachelor's, is working. I picked up a part-time job organizing oil and gas conferences. And this gave me some work experience, a little bit of pocket money, but also a network. And through that network originated an opportunity to work over the summer after my third year in an investment bank in an oil and gas team. So you see the connection. I was at oil and gas conferences, I met people and they said, would you like to do an internship? They really need somebody for the summer. It's an off-cycle internship. And this is how I ended up interning at an investment bank. Not planning to stay. This was just something to do, a bit of extra experience, understand how the world works. But while I was in an investment bank, and because I was interested in how the world works, I was talking to everybody in the bank, the team that I sat with, the team that sat next to us. There was an official intern stream happening at the same time, and they had a few events, during the lunchtimes teaching them. So I joined those. Why not? And my team was very lovely. They allowed me to do that. So I networked with people and it somehow ended up receiving a full-time job offer in a completely different part of the bank in the sales team, so kind of the equities floor, to join them full-time at exactly the same time as my master's was meant to start. So I did a bit of a financial evaluation. Either I'm paying this much for my master's or I'm getting paid twice as much for a job that is actually very prestigious. And that's how I ended up in investment banking.
Right. So you've mentioned that, okay, you now have this prestigious job. You are happy you've secured this place. You are happy financially. What happened next? At which point did you start realizing that, okay, maybe this is not quite right for you?
I spent a couple of very happy years in my role. I remember writing a Christmas card to the managing director who hired me saying, "Thank you so much. I have loved my time here. Merry Christmas. You have shown me the way for my career." I remember that very well because I was so, happy about it. I really wanted to just express it to the person. And after a couple of years, so once you've done a full cycle of what happens in equities, what the markets look like over the year, the second year for me kind of seemed to be on repeat. I've actually already seen all these companies, seen all of these quarters finish. I've sat through these calls. Nothing was really new anymore. And this is where my excitement actually started to wear down and burnout started to settle in, because it is not a very easy job. The markets in the UK open at 8 o'clock. All the news hit the press at 7. So on Bloomberg, 7 a.m., everything is orange or red. Everything, like news headlines are coming in, companies are reporting. So that means at 7 a.m. you have to be in the office very alert and ready to go. So our manager said we have to be in the office at least at 6:30. As a girl starting out in banking, you want to put up a little bit of makeup on. So guess what time I was waking up? Around 5:30 in the morning. That is an early start. I don't think I've ever done that in my life before. School, university, it does start early, but you don't really wake up at 5:30. The day finishes at 4:30, so the trading finishes at that point, but you still wrap up the market. There's after-market trading, closes around 5, at which point you go to have additional meetings with your clients or with companies. These meetings, usually it's a dinner, either drinks and dinner, so you would finish around 9, 10, get home around 11, check what else has been published after the market has closed, and, head on the pillow around midnight for me. 5.5 hours of sleep. For something that was very exciting at first, but then I realized that's not really my thing. The combination of these two elements and not getting enough sleep really started to build up. And I ended up at a place of burnout, unfortunately, and actually quite severe burnout. I can tell you about the moment I realized that I really want to leave.
Yes, please. And also, can you tell me a bit more about the burnout itself? What did it feel like? And because some people, I'm sure, are experiencing it and just don't know that it's that. So I think it would be super helpful to know what it looks like in practice.
Yeah, so I had signs. Firstly, I started neglecting that morning makeup routine. You kind of start thinking, I can do it in 5 minutes. I'm very good. Actually, it's a great skill. I still use it to this day. But this is starting to kind of neglect what usually is basic self-care when you go to work. Started being a little bit later for work. So 6:30 is when you should be there. But can I push it to 6:35, 6:40? What's the deadline? So you're kind of not really as diligent anymore, and it's because you're not very passionate. And then one of the biggest telltale signs for me was when I was at work, any spare minute I had, I was planning out my weekends and maybe my holidays. I was planning out all of the rest of my life, and that's where my mind was. Those 5 days a week were eaten up by the job. There was nothing there, and I actually didn't care about it that much. That calendar filled itself. But I was so looking forward to weekends. I think it was maybe May, and I knew what I was doing every single weekend until September. That is not okay. You should have a little bit of freedom in your life, and your life happens at work. This is something that I'm very passionate about now as well. Work is where we spend a lot of our time, more than we sleep and spend with our loved ones or practicing our hobbies. So it is not okay to neglect that, 70% chunk of life. The moment when I realized I need to go, I had a holiday planned with my family. I was really excited about it because I hadn't taken any holiday in some time. Really looking forward to it. All agreed with my team, with my MD. The end of the working day, I have to go to the airport and a deal lands on the desk. So when the deal lands, you don't have the names of the figures, but you know in general what it looks like. But obviously I had no interest in doing the deal after 5 p.m. because I needed to leave the office, no dinner and drinks with clients that evening. I was going to the airport for my holiday. But when something like this happens, you have to stay on the desk and you will be working for a couple of additional hours that evening. So I told my managing director, look, I have a flight, I'm going to need to go. To which he said, well, yes, but, this is what the whole team is doing, so you should be here.
So that's a normal practice to cancel or to kind of neglect your...
I feel like
personal plans? Like it wasn't, you felt there is an expectation that you stay, even though you told him that.
It wasn't an expectation. I was told that I have to stay. I'm
Right.
not sure what he thought I was doing about my flight or whatever. I mean, he probably was busy himself, so he didn't quite hear exactly. He didn't remember that I was going away. It was just kind of explicit that, you're staying because we're all working on this. When the deal landed, it actually wasn't that big, so I got additionally upset on my manager for him not remembering or recognizing my plans, not being sensitive to what I'm telling him. There's tickets, plane tickets, money at stake for me as well. But also, it wasn't even that important. It really wasn't that big. I wasn't going to make a big difference, just me staying there. So really, what he maybe could have done is said, Alexandra, thank you so much. I know you've been working hard. We can do this without you. Go enjoy your holiday. That would have probably kept me there for another couple of years. But just in that moment, the way that, I heard the response, I felt that, do you know what? This is not how I want to live my life. And I'm not happy with this. I'm not okay. So during that holiday, like I said, it was a family holiday. I told my family, actually, I'm thinking of leaving. To which they said, yes, finally, open the champagne. We're so happy. Congratulations. Great decision. So they were obviously seeing how this burnout was affecting me. And I was very lucky to have gotten that support. So when I came back, the first day I was back, I told my manager, can we meet? Can we have a chat? And I told him I'm thinking of leaving.
And so that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. How did your family react? And it sounds like your family was quite supportive because they were seeing what impact it has on your mental state and well-being. How about other people, like your friends, your colleagues? Obviously, everyone who works in finance, or in any industry for that matter, are in a bit of a bubble. And especially if you work for a prestigious school firm, did you receive any questions? Oh, why are you leaving this job? It's so prestigious. Think twice, just push through it. Have you heard any of those comments?
For sure. I mean, firstly, maybe it's important to know what the reaction of my director was. He was asking, is there anything I can do to make you stay? To which I said, no, there really isn't. And for him, it was really perplexing. So he was asking, what are you thinking of doing? Usually this kind of conversation happens when you have an offer from a competitor, and as a result, you have a bit of a salary negotiation, or you're kind of switching, you have another job lined up. And I just told him I'm leaving. I didn't have anything else lined up. So he was absolutely perplexed. He did not understand. Neither did my team or my clients. But they were really lovely. I had built some lovely relationships. So when I was leaving, I had a very large leaving party. I had gifts from clients as tokens of appreciation, gifts from my team. It was really, really sweet. And I actually think not something that happens in the industry very often, if at all. Investment banking is very regulated now. You can't really be doing gifts. But equally, there are not many people like me who just leave and are very honest about it. So there were definitely some people who did not understand what I was doing. But I think my reaction was being very proud of it. I was very happy that this is what I was doing. I was somehow very confident it was the right move for me. So that made it easier to speak with people who were doubting my intentions.
And that's another thing that I wanted to ask you. Did you have any kind of consideration or doubt whether it's the right decision? For example, one of the themes that come up in some of my conversation is opportunity cost. Obviously, if you stay, you have this career in a good, well-paying job. Have you ever had second thoughts? Is it worth kind of throwing all of this away for something else?
I think there are different ways to look at it. When you enter the industry, for a lot of graduates, it's very lucrative. That is how they know they've made it. This is what they were working so hard for, all those exams, university time, job applications. If you're in the industry, you feel like you've made it. So it's very easy to think, of course I'm staying. I've been working so hard for this. What is my sunk cost here? But once you're inside, you realize that the grind is real. When people were warning you about the fact that it is not easy on the inside, and I think this stands for investment banking, consulting, kind of related high-intensity industries, you realize that, especially in the first few years, you really have to stick it out. And this is when you ask yourself, what am I sticking it out for? Do I see myself being that senior vice president or managing director in a couple of years? Maybe in a decade or more? Is this my ultimate career direction? Is this how I want to live my life? You're with those people every day. You see what they're doing, what their families look like. You kind of understand what the life looks like. And this is your future if you stay. So if you want that, you stick it out. When I looked at it, I could not see myself waking up at 5:30 for the next 15 years. I actually could not see myself sitting in a desk job doing what they're doing going forward. So that was the reason for me to say, I'm not going to stick it out. I'm going to try something else.
Was it just about the lifestyle or also about the nature of the job? The question that I keep thinking about as I'm hearing you speak about your experiences is, obviously the grind and the lifestyle is super difficult, right? Especially if it's a multi-year marathon. What if that was not an issue? What if you got enough sleep, had a relatively good work-life balance? Would you stay?
No, and this is really important. This is actually crucial. I was not passionate about this job. Remember, I was telling you how at first it was all novel. The first year was so exciting. I was meeting CEOs of companies. I was reading the latest news of what luxury companies are producing. It's actually fascinating. But when I was reading it, I was not particularly interested. That was the problem. So even if the lifestyle was fantastic and, the job was easy, fundamentally what I was doing, that financial analysis, the kind of analysis and dissection of industries and companies were just not my thing. So that also was lying at the root of why I left. These were kind of the two reasons. You kind of hit the nail on the head there.
And now that you're obviously doing something that you're passionate about and looking back, can you distill what was missing there? Because to your point, you can spin it in an interesting way, like luxury companies, CEOs, like all of this kind of, there is an exciting angle to it. But still, it was not that. So now that you think back, what was missing in that activity for you personally?
Yeah, so like you say, it is absolutely fascinating. The job was incredible. I remember meeting some people from my school who also knew other students who quit the school, and they were saying, you are the only one from your kind of graduation year who are doing something that is quite so exciting. It's very rare at the start of your career to be doing all these fascinating things, these meetings, international conferences, absolutely stunning. And to be honest, the hours weren't even that bad either. I know that in other parts of the investment bank, things can get harder. It really is much harder. What was missing for me? I think I wanted to do that master's, remember? Right at the start, I wanted to study more. So I felt that I never quite completed that. And actually, now that I think back, I remember myself considering a PhD back then as well. I had some conversations with professors about doing a PhD and what it looks like. At the time, they told me it's not, as they said, sexy as you think it is. It's hard. So I kind of thought, okay, we'll put that one on pause for the moment. But these were things that interested me throughout and probably what I wanted to come back with. So it is a little bit more academic, a little bit more fundamental. When you're analyzing companies at performance, it's very this minute, very current. Maybe we're looking a year ahead. If we're looking at some trends, maybe we're looking 5 years ahead, but this is speculation. What we do in academia is deeper and is more fundamental. It either is like this or it is not, and we have statistics to... It is kind of different in its nature. So I think this academic spin was closer for me. And maybe I can add one more thing here. The other thing that was missing for me is teaching. Maybe I get it from my family. I do have some teachers in the family. I'm very passionate about sharing knowledge, inspiring people, being open and trying to give something. This was not something I was able to do in my job. After I quit, I was waiting to start my master's. I had some time before the master's started. And what I did in that time is I went away and got a ski instructor qualification because I've been skiing most of my life. So I got a teaching qualification and went and started teaching skiing. So this probably says a lot about what I was really missing, this more personal connection and being able to share knowledge.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love asking this question about, especially in retrospect, what people find they were missing in the previous role, because I feel like it tells so much about values of a person. And here, I'm not going to say like values that would apply to everyone, because here you can see clearly how each individual just has their own like things that they were brought up with, own like brain wiring. I don't know what values have to do, kind of how do they form, but you just see that they're very individual to every person. And like partly I feel like one of the main considerations when you leave a career is that some of these values are simply not kind of satisfied, you know?
Yes, 100%. I think I can also say that values can change. I say this a lot in my kind of career consulting. Your preferences can change and your values change. And it's very important to be honest with yourself, to recognize this and make some shifts. As you can imagine, somebody who's 18 has very different priorities in life than somebody who's 35. And this is maybe something that happened for me. I had this shift. I realized I need more flexibility in life to be able to spend more time with my family. Family is actually a very big value of mine. And having this flexibility, so not being in the bank without, being able to call my family if I need to, was not something that was going to work for me going forward. So again, coming back to your point on values, you're completely right.
And to wrap up with the bank and move on to more exciting things that are happening in your life right now, how did you think about financial impact of leaving this job? Because obviously, to the point that you've mentioned, it's such a well sought after industry with high starting salary. How were you thinking about the financial impact of this decision of leaving it?
Yeah, so the salaries are very good. Even the starting salaries are fantastic in these kind of industries. So you really are remunerated for the time and effort that you put in, especially when compared to some other jobs. In my case, I used it to actually build a little safety pillow that allowed me to leave and, try again, try and do something else. And here is maybe something that I want to say to other people who will be going through a similar journey, that a salary that you have, it will come from other sources. It will just look different. It will not come from one employer and one check. It will probably come from, different hustles, different activities that you'll be doing. So it will look different, but it very much can amount to the same total sum. And maybe when you hear this, you have a lot more bravery to do something like this. It is simpler, obviously, to receive it in one payment at the end of the month or one bonus payment at the start of the year. But it is very possible to reach something similar by doing other things. Yes, you will have to be more creative, but if you're trying to calculate your salary per hour, for example, then things will even out if that's what you want to do. It is very, very possible.
Okay, perfect. Now closing the investment bank chapter, and let's go back to the point where you've left the bank, and I understand that you didn't know exactly what you will be doing next, correct?
That's right.
Can you tell me a bit more? How did you go about it? Like, what was this time was like, and what were you trying to learn, find out? Like, how did you try to figure out what to do next during this time?
So because I was really quite burnt out and working very hard as well, I felt that the only way forward possible for me was to quit and then think what I'm going to do. People were asking, so I was kind of toying with some ideas, but in reality, my main answer to what are you going to do next was, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next. I'm going to rest a little bit, and then I'm going to see what I want to do. When you're burnt out, it is very common to not feel a passion for anything. People ask you, what do you want to eat? And you don't actually know. This is very common in banking because during lunchtime you just order whatever and you eat it while you are looking at the screen. Or if you're in a meeting with clients, your attention is with the client, what you're going to say to them, not what you're eating. So you don't actually know what you want. Same thing with what do you want to do? What do you want to read? What movie do you want to watch? You don't actually know. You don't care anymore. This is burnout. So what you need to do is allow yourself some time to listen to yourself, and at some point it will come back. Something will come back. So this is what I thought. I will feel it once I've rested enough. I will have an inkling for something, and that will be great. And I did. I think it took me maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and I found myself Googling masters at London School of Economics. Interestingly, what I was Googling was not management. So originally, when I finished my bachelor's and I applied for master's, management was what I wanted to do. And in fact, when I took up the job, I did use the opportunity to reapply for next year in case investment banking didn't work out. I got that place again for master's in management. But the story goes, I decided I don't need it. I'm staying in banking. So at the point when I was applying again, this is the 3rd time now I'm trying, I found myself browsing around social psychology. And this is how I knew I wanted to do social psychology. When I was doing my bachelor's at the London School of Economics, which is a fantastic social sciences university that allows you to explore any social science that is within it, beyond the course that you're currently doing, I found myself sitting in lectures for social psychology. Now, this was not an examined course for me. This wasn't anywhere near what I was actually doing and being examined on. I just happened to see a lecture by a professor, actually at a course that LSE puts for all undergraduates, which is another fantastic thing. It allows you to explore what is there. It actually feeds you the opportunity to see what else is there. So I really loved that lecture, and I sat in these lectures for social psychology course.
What did you like about it?
It was fascinating. It was talking about us as humans, and us as humans who live in societies, and how the fact that we're in a society influences us. I remember that one of the books that I picked up and read after one of the lectures was by Goffman, and it talks about people wearing masks. It is actually quite an old academic text now, but it is still foundational. When we live in a society, we behave differently. So me in this podcast with you, I wear one mask. I play a role. I'm, an actor. When I'm at home with my mother, I play the role of a daughter. When I'm with my husband, I am a wife. When I'm with my students, I am a teacher. So social psychology kind of opens your eyes to this. And once you accept this fact, you can do things with it. You understand a lot more about human psychology and how societies behave. So it was brilliant. But for me at this time, having quit the bank and thinking what I want to do, I thought that going into lectures of my own accord, I didn't even tell anyone about it. That is the sign that I'm passionate about this. That is how it works. As I was browsing courses around social psychology, I saw that LSE has launched a brand new master's in behavioral science. Opened that up, that sounded very exciting. And I realized that all the books that are recommended reading, I've read already.
No way. So that's, a pure just example of intrinsic motivation. Like when you have no reason, no one's forcing you to do it, but you're like, okay, you just happen to do it because.
It was brilliant. It was a moment of revelation. I honestly hope other people experience this in their lives. I opened up my lectures, my notes from the lecture. Remember, I was talking about that professor of social psychology? And I could just see. So there are notes for every single lecture there. There was an sociologist coming in, anthropologist coming in, philosopher coming in, economist. My notes were so extensive for the lecture on social psychology and behavioral science. My personal statement wrote itself. I was so passionate about it back then. It was very clear. You couldn't miss it. And that's how I realized, that's the thing that I should be doing next. Maybe it's important here to note that I gave myself the freedom to pursue whatever I was truly passionate about. So when I quit banking, I wasn't thinking, what's my next career where I will be able to make a lot of money? What will look good on my CV? I just told myself, I burnt out. I'm going to wait until some passion comes back. Whatever it comes back for is what I'm going to pursue. I have the freedom to do this. I have some savings. That's what I did.
Would you say it's also a difference in mindset that plays a role here? Because I feel like when we are just fresh out of university, we don't know, like, we need to compete and prove ourselves. And like, you tend to go somewhere where everyone is going and what's considered to be like, I don't know, prestigious or something. Yeah, whatever. Like, there are clear industries in each degree where like all the people are trying to go to. While after you have been in the industry for a while, especially if you have experienced something like a burnout, you realize, okay, like my next step won't be about proving my value and proving myself to others. My next step will be about me and what I'm passionate about. I guess, yeah, I don't even know what's the question. Would you agree with this observation? Because I find it for myself definitely that there is a sharp contrast of around your criteria, I guess, for choosing your career when you right at the start and kind of you are no one and you still have this whole journey that you need to take on to prove yourself, versus when you already kind of have experienced it and now you just want to live the life for yourself, so to speak, you know?
100%. So here I have a shocking observation. I think it is unthinkable that people have to choose, aged 17 in the UK when you apply to university, what degree you're going to study and then how it's going to shape your life. You have to choose your career. This is particularly difficult, I think, for people going into medicine and related fields. How can you possibly know, age 17, that this is the career you want to pursue for the rest of your life? Now, for medicine, maybe I don't really have an answer because it really does require you knowing pretty early on, studying for a very long time, and pretty much that's where you stay. But for majority of other industries and disciplines, we're very lucky to live in an age where statistically, the new generations will change their career entirely 3 to 5 times during their career lifespan. This is very normal now. It's actually almost expected. It will definitely propel you forward as a professional. Gone are the days where you are an oil and gas professional and that's what you do all your life at the same company for 25 years. But also, new careers are emerging. New opportunities are emerging. If you were born to be a social media manager, well, guess what? 5 years ago, this didn't exist. It was just not a path. You could have been banging your head on the wall saying, I can't find my passion. What do I want to do? Well, actually, the job title for you just hasn't been born yet. And this is the age we live at now. So actually, it allows many more opportunities and many more switches. So on the one hand, of course, your mindset is so different when you're young. You can't possibly comprehend what is ahead of you. But equally, you don't have to. All you have to do is start and then iterate towards your changing values, your changing perspective, and what will bring you fulfillment and kind of cover your bases at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of can you tell me a bit more about what you're doing now? And how do you feel in this job relative to your experience in investment banking? And the reason I'm asking this is some people have a view that the grass is always greener on the other side. And actually, a job is a job. You shouldn't expect too much from it. Like, no job is perfect. Like, if you expect excitement from your job, it's probably a very high expectation. So here I would really want to explore, like, someone who has made a switch to something that they're passionate about, like qualitatively, what is the feeling like in the current career versus the previous career?
So my current career is very different, and it looks like what I would call and other people call a portfolio career. So I do several different things at the same time, which already is very different from just being a bank employee. In fact, if you're working in an industry such as banking, you can't possibly have another job. You have to disclose it. There is a lot of confidentiality. But what I'm doing now looks different. So I am a behavioral scientist. I am now finishing my PhD in psychological and behavioral science at the London School of Economics. I also run my own business, and within that business, I do 2 types of consulting. One is corporate consulting, and this is similar to the kind of projects I do as part of my PhD, but for a fee for corporates. And the other side of it is private consulting. So this is where I do individual career consulting, helping people build their careers. It is important to understand that my PhD is also all about careers, but from an academic or corporate perspective. So in my PhD, I look at employee well-being, and specifically I look at how companies can improve employee well-being, focusing in particular on hybrid work and different ways that hybrid work affects our lives. So I speak a lot with organizations. I also speak a lot with cross-industry organizations. So kind of one of the companies I was working with was the Banking Standards Board, or the Financial Services and Culture Board. That is kind of a cross-industry organization within finance that surveys employees everywhere in the financial industry, investment banks, pension funds, etc., and then looks at well-being across the board. So this is the data that I work with and kind of evaluate what's happening in the industry, what can companies be doing, etc. Because I have this understanding of how companies look at it, and also fundamentally what employee well-being is, I'm also able to kind of fill in the piece of the jigsaw of career consulting. Because no matter what the company does to make you happy at work, if it is just not your place, like where I was, if it just doesn't fit you, or you're underpaid, you're not marketing yourself properly in the job market, your well-being is still not going to be high. Speaking plainly, you're still not going to be happy. So it's very important to work on an individual level as well, so that kind of everything fits together.
So what does it feel like? Do you enjoy the portfolio aspect more versus being employed in one place? And also, how about like this day-to-day things like Sunday blues? Do you still have Sunday blues, or like if you had it before? I assume you have, but who knows? Like how about like Sunday blues, the mood that you kind of start your workday with? Is there a difference?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. So firstly, and this relates to what you asked before, no, it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. The grass is always greener. There's still difficulties to what I'm doing. I have a lot of different deadlines to meet. I am my own motivation, so I have to push myself forward. I find this particularly hard with PhD because it kind of doesn't really give you back the money directly. You just have to work to finish it over 4 years. So it's very difficult. There are definitely challenges. But is it much better for me than what I experienced before? 100%. I don't have Sunday blues because my week is structured around what I want it to be structured like. If I want to work on a Saturday, I can. If I want to take a break on a Wednesday, I also can. I can, structure my projects and my clients in the way that I want to. Probably the only reason I still have a little bit of Sunday blues is because my husband is still in a Monday to Friday job. So I observe him. And actually, I now have the kind of capacity to help ease it on him. And, I can be the happier one organizing something on a Sunday to make sure that it's not difficult for both of us. But personally, myself, of course, my week looks a lot happier. My well-being is much higher.
Can you tell me a bit more? You said that you're doing career consulting. How can you help people who are thinking about career change? What can you help them with?
So I actually help with pretty much the whole path of career transition, whatever that is. It can either be career transition from university to your first job or one role to another. And this starts first with observing what you want to do and, deciding how you want to craft your path. I usually help my clients develop a plan A, plan B, and plan C, and we talk about what percentage allocation of our time we're going to give to each. So kind of crafting where you're going and how you're going to get there. Then it starts with job applications and networking. So the start of your job search process is twofold. Firstly, you need to know what's in the market, what is the market looking like, what do I need to send the employer to be considered for this job, but also networking, which is the other crucial piece to finding the roles that maybe are not yet advertised, or getting further in the roles that are out there because you know a little bit more about the company, the role. You can have these people help you prepare for this process. Afterwards, it's all about interviewing. So obviously various tests if you're a bit more junior, but afterwards it's all about interviews. And I help with helping craft your elevator pitch, prepare for answering interview questions, making sure that you're as prepared as can be. So here I don't help with anything technical. I had a few IT specialists coming through, so I don't do the technical questioning, even though I do code myself for my PhD. I'm not an expert on this. My clients are much more expert. But anything around behavioral interview questions, I love helping with. And then the next stage is salary negotiation and package negotiation. So everything that you're going to receive once you have the job offer and the contract, we go through several rounds of negotiation, making sure that the offer is as good as can be for you. And sometimes I also help with this final piece, which is fitting in the new team. So when you start in your new role, how are you positioning yourself? How is your relationship with colleagues? Many people, especially quite junior, make the mistake of becoming a kind of workhorse. They feel that they need to stay as long as they can, take on as many projects as they can, show that they're very keen in this job. This is actually not the most successful way to brand yourself in your new role for the long term. So again, this is something that I help with.
And that's actually something that I wanted to zoom into a bit more. So what mistakes, apart from the one that you've mentioned, do you see people doing? And let's maybe take specifically example of people who are doing career changes, for example, switching between different industries.
Yeah. One piece that I didn't mention is, of course, crafting your CV, and if needed, a kind of cover letter as well for the job. And CV is where I see the most mistakes being made. They're very simple. They occur all the time, but they can just be such a silly reason for you to be missing out on fantastic opportunities. So one mistake that people don't see, especially in this career transition process, is not having a little paragraph about yourself right up top of your CV. If I look at your CV now and you're working in investment banking, it tells me very little about the fact that you now want to work in strategy consulting. I probably think you're qualified, but why on earth your CV landed in my hands, and whether it's by mistake, it's not clear. But if you have this little paragraph saying that you are an investment banker with over 10 years of experience looking to make a career transition to strategy consulting, in particular, you have previously worked, for example, with sustainability in your investment banking, now you want to work on sustainability and strategy consulting, frankly, I don't need to read anything else in your CV. 2 sentences can tell me why your CV is here, and then we will continue in the interview. So that's a very common mistake.
And any other mistakes that you would highlight? And again, specifically for people who are shifting industries.
Quite often we use a lot of terminology in our CV. So if I am in a particular M&A investment banking team, I will be using certain terminology abbreviations in my CV to show the next person in a competitor company what I've been doing. If you are transitioning to a different industry, people will not necessarily understand what you meant by those abbreviations. So it's very important that you do your research and you know what the expectation is, where you're going, and translate everything that you have been doing in a way that is digestible for your new future employer. Because if they don't understand how you framed your experience, they're unfortunately not going to understand what credit you're going to bring to their team. So it's very important to do this translation. And again, this is something that I can help with. Sometimes it's just a second pair of eyes to question, what exactly did you mean here? Is it important here that you increased the speed of the deal, or actually is the deal itself the key that will be important for your new employer? It's not about the efficiency, it's about the fact that you have this experience. So can we brand this differently?
And do you observe that some people underestimate transferability of their skills? Because I'm thinking, if I want to change industries, like probably like a lot of people identify themselves with the actual job function that they've been doing for a while, and it's maybe really difficult for them to think that this skill set can be applied somewhere else. So do you observe that people underestimate this, or is this not true?
I think that a lot of people do. It's actually in general very common to underestimate yourself, not just the transferable skills that you have, but not even thinking about what you in general can bring to the table with your experience. This is where writing a CV and updating it is very important. A lot of people fear boasting about themselves, blowing their own trumpet. We're told to be a little bit, humble, nice to other people. We're not told to go and market ourselves. But it's a very important part that you can do when you are looking for a job or when you're building your career. Nobody else is going to do this but you. Absolutely no one else will stand out there saying, Alexandra is fantastic. So you have to do it. You have to do it yourself. This is why your CVs should be really good. And once you look at your CV, when you've written that you're a professional with that many years of experience, you've worked on over 50 deals, you had over 200 clients, you kind of understand the transferable skills that you have. You've been speaking with all these clients. You've been negotiating deals. You've been managing a team. It kind of comes to you, but often we don't realize ourselves that we have these skills. So it's important to look at yourself through a new pair of eyes and really step back from your day-to-day, from your job, from you as an investment banker, and look at yourself as a professional. Where are you at right now? And what can you do with this amazing skill set and experience?
And do people make any mistakes? And I assume yes, in when it comes to an important topic of salary negotiation. What tips would you give to these people?
There are a lot of very common mistakes there as well. So first mistake that happens is not negotiating. Is being so happy that this particular company gave you an offer and maybe you've been looking for months. So you're so keen, you just say, thank you, when can I start? Well, that's a mistake. You haven't even started the negotiation. The company could have picked your salary package from absolutely anywhere. They're probably giving you the lowest cost they think you would agree to, but it definitely is not the highest point. So the very first thing that you should do is make sure you negotiate. Make sure you come back saying, thank you so much. I'm very delighted to have your offer. I was having a different figure in my head, closer to. Give a range. So never give just one figure. Always give a range in every stage of negotiation. Is there anything you could do to bring me closer to that? That is the very least you can do, and you should be doing it every time that any kind of offer lands in your hands. Very, very common mistake.
And I would love to ask you about the other part of your portfolio career, which is research focused on employee well-being and hybrid work. So specifically on hybrid work, which is a very hot topic after COVID, what have been your findings? How does hybrid work influence employee well-being, and what's the right way of doing hybrid work? Based on your research.
Of course. I want to say that I arrived at this topic before COVID actually hit. So I quit my job in investment banking, I think it was 2019, and I was applying for my master's with a thesis that large companies such as my old employer have to offer more flexibility to young talent like myself in order to keep them in these jobs so that they don't consider deflecting to, say, startups or, the Googles of the world that allow them to work anytime from any place as long as the job is done. So this was my thesis, more flexibility. Let me work from home. Let me not put my makeup on at 5:30. I'll be happier then. So this was my thesis. At that point, it was unimaginable. Like I said, my manager said 6:30 in the office every day. No excuses. But I thought that's not the case. So I applied with this thesis, and then what happened? COVID hit. And my thesis played out. So my research that I thought at some point they would be saying, Dr. Kirienko said this 20 years ago, but now we're doing it, actually happened in front of my eyes. And the beautiful thing that it did is gave me a wealth of data to work with, to analyze. What happened during this time? What happened to these companies? How did the employees feel? What was performance like? So we have this fantastic natural experiment that occurred that I am now able to use to kind of make conclusions out of it. So now I'm focusing on hybrid work, which is the extension of what happened during COVID. As people started coming back, there emerged new ways of working. It is, of course, notable that other companies did experiment with hybrid working before. So it was in practice to some extent. Some IT companies offered that previously. In terms of financial institutions, Deutsche Bank offered flexibility before. So actually, I think they did it out of shortage of desks. People had to come in a maximum of 3 days a week and then hot desk. So they kind of played with this hybrid work model previously. But now everybody was kind of open to it. What I do now is work on how different hybrid work patterns affect our well-being, but also our performance. So these are the two metrics. One is important for the employee and one is for the employer. Where is that golden new mode of working that will take us away from the Monday to Friday, morning to evening kind of work style? This working pattern emerged at the start of the 20th century in manufacturing. This is what Henry Ford actually introduced. The reason that we have Saturday and Sunday off was because of the different religious denominations and their requirements. And the reason they had to be in at the workplace Monday to Friday was because that's where the work was done. It was a factory. The kind of work that we do now is very different. The society that we live in is different. The technology available to us is also different. So it seems natural that we have to look to new ways of formulating our work. So this is what I'm working on at the moment in my research.
And can you share some of these findings, especially on what's this optimal point between optimal performance and optimal well-being?
A very, very good question. It is not as easy as that. What we're finding is that there are a number of variables that affect this optimum point for the employee and the employer. At the moment, I'm still testing, and what I'm testing is firstly the number of days that you spend at home, and also the number of days that you spend working in an office. Is it 1 and 4, 3 and 2, 2 and 3, or any of the extremes? And I'm also testing where these days are located in the week. So you can imagine if you're working in this anecdotal 3-2 model, 3 days in the office, 2 at home, and 2 days of the weekend, where these 2 days at home are placed can make a big difference. If it's a Monday and Friday, then like we talked before, you don't have any Sunday blues, but in the middle of the week you're going to the office. If you start in the office, then go back home on Wednesday and then back to the office on Thursday, potentially that changes the way that these outcomes function for you. So I'm kind of in the stage of testing all of these options. In my work with corporates, I always advise at the moment for a bespoke approach. Before we have solid statistical outcomes that have been tested across the board, for the moment we test in a bespoke way. What is going to work for this particular team in your company. So sales will be very different from IT, will be very different from research and development, etc. Their metrics are different, the way they work is different. So I advise for a slightly more bespokely formulated approach around a number of hybrid work variables.
Thank you. Amazing. Moving on to the wrap-up part of the interview, where I usually ask two things. The first one is this grandiose question about purpose, and the second one, which is advice you would give to other people based on your experience who want to switch the careers. So starting with purpose, do you think that purpose is important, and how do you define purpose for yourself?
I think purpose is, of course, extremely important. There are theories of happiness that take purpose out as one of the key components of individual happiness. Purpose can be either internal or external. For some people, purpose is external, such as I am doing research that is going to help the world, it's going to help employees of the future. It means a lot to me. I'm also teaching at the London School of Economics, so I'm giving to the next generation of professionals. That's external purpose. For me, it's very important. For other people, internal purpose will be more important. I'm doing this for my family. I need to work hard now because I need to provide for my family. A lot of people don't have the flexibility to forget about this. So these are different types of purpose. It is open to different people, but both give meaning to you and both can give happiness to you.
And what advice would you give to others who are thinking about shifting their career?
I would always advise not leaving it as late as I did, to the point where you're fully burnt out and you need to take a complete break. I would advise listening to yourself, finding this a bit early, and then starting to look and think what else is open while you're still in your current job, because this makes your transition a lot softer, a lot easier. You're always in a much more preferable position if you're currently employed, you're currently a professional looking to switch, rather than you're unemployed, you don't know what to do, your finances are potentially running out and you're looking to switch. So start early. Start giving maybe not 120% to your job, as many people do in these high intensity industries. Give it 80%, but leave those 20% to browse for job opportunities, meet up with people who could help you in your career, network a little bit, send some speculative applications. This will help you move towards that change that you want to make, whilst maintaining the stability that you have, and also, staying that employed professional that you are at the moment. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I really, really enjoyed our conversation, and good luck with your research. I would love to have you back when you can share the findings that will revolutionize the way we work in corporates. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and good luck to everyone watching.
When you hear the rhythm, start to move.
Thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening. Please do subscribe to this channel. Please share the link to this episode with a friend who is looking for a career change. And until next time, be shameless.